Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. I did think it was going to be just Sugar and Stretch tonight, but we're all here in all our glory. Me being Ben Doughty.
Me being Gary Stretch.
And me being the third wheel. Silk alive.
Yes. We've got a different order this time. You see what I mean? Because Simon's not here, he usually flips you at the last minute. Have you noticed that, Michael? It's usually Gary in the middle. And then
it's always been like that, but I have this pattern in my head up there.
But he usually flips you around, so you're in the middle. So we have Sugar, Silk and Stretch. But at the minute, we don't have that. So we're going to have to ask the viewers to make that gargantuan kind of mental shift and imagine Gary in the middle. I don't know what that strange... It's not a barcode, but it's something... I know what it is. It's someone you book a flight or something online.
I don't
Maybe it's a new patch. There you go.
Yeah, you go. You know, now you really can't see anything. I mean, usually, you can be obstinate, but now you're literally blind.
More obstinate. I've never heard that before. I've been called a few things, but never obstinate in my life.
Have you been called flower lately?
Guys, in terms of the main business of the show, which is always the sweet science, there is a show in Monte Carlo this weekend featuring Joe Cordina defending his.
Okay. Sorry, Ben. For 1 second, before we go any further, this is very, very important to me. Last week we discussed the fight and pretty much the Fury and Gao fight. And it turned out the way some people thought it would turn out. Didn't turn out the way some people thought it would turn out.
Yeah.
And, at that point in the podcast, the three of us were on and we had conversation. And I think at that point, I had called a fight probably more as in history. I don't know if it's ever been more accurate than that. And that was, please, if you can, what did I say was going to happen?
Have you got, seriously, before I answer that question, can you answer me one? Have you got amnesia and do you forget that we went through all this on Sunday?
No amnesia. No pugilistic dementia or dementia pugilistica either.
Gary, have we been through this or not?
Yes.
You know how Silk operates. He wants an underlining confirmation that he beat us. And
what didn't we say last week?
He's even dressed up in a rose today to put it's like flowers on our grave.
Yeah,
and he's basically saying, "I'm the man." But we'll give him a UFC guy against the box. It's not even a real.
But that isn't the point at all. You'll honestly be surprised when you hear what the point is. So
go on.
So please. So you remember what happened, right? And
yes, of course.
And what did I say, please? If you could.
You said that guy, looking at the way he's training, he is training to knock him out, or nothing, and land a big shot. He will do, and he will put Fury over, but the likelihood is he will lose on points. But he's going to knock that guy down.
I said he was going to knock Fury down, right?
Yeah.
And I said he was going to lose the decision.
Yes, you did.
And that's exactly what happened. That's pretty accurate.
Yes,
right?
As we said last Sunday. Keep going.
So we were sitting down discussing this brilliance, and we were all here gathered together and talking about how accurate I was and blah blah blah. I don't want to go into that anymore. But I will go into the fact that I said at this point we should show some fealty to the king and kiss the ring. And Gary, very you know what I mean. He owned up. He was like, "Okay, man up." He showed fealty, kissed the ring. He said, "Yes, very good." He did exactly that. Ben, you didn't. I've seen the video.
I didn't, and I ain't going to do it either. I told you the same day. I told you when something else happens to do with the overturning of a result that was at Madison Square Garden back in 1988. Yeah. I said, as soon as they overturn that conclusive stoppage result is the day that I will show that kind of subservient homage. And before I continue, somehow I think it suited Gary to do that. But Gary kind of sort of cheekily leant forward and kissed that ring. And it kind of suited Gary without diminishing him in any way. But I think you know me too well
and you think it would diminish you in a way to kiss the ring.
I mean, it doesn't feel organic to my
personality. If it happened to me, I would kiss the ring. I mean,
with me, I have no resistance in this conversation.
Listen, was there a situation?
Got some resilience, and I think for him to change, it would be an issue. So,
what
I think
did we have a situation where I said, if Michael Olajide is right about this fight, I will kiss his feet in the ring. I didn't. It wasn't like that, was it? I didn't say I was.
But Ali said he would do it as well,
and he lied.
But he didn't lose.
No, he did. If Joe Frazier whoops me, I will kiss his feet in the ring.
No, he said it about somebody else, not Joe Frazier.
No, he said it about Joe Frazier, and I will prove that to you anytime, any day of the week. I'll prove that to you. And if you're wrong,
besides Joe Frazier, he said it to somebody else.
May I ask a question? Is it? Tell me the reasoning behind the importance of Ben bowing to the ring.
Well, I just think it's. I don't know. It shows that we're all three of us are on the same page. We have this understanding of one another and what
sounds like a frat house hazing to me. Go. Can we move forward a little bit because I don't want to stay stuck on that. Let's talk. Since you shifted the conversation to Fury and Ngannou, let's go with that then. Do you know? People at the WBC took the decision to rank Ngannou in the top 10 heavyweights after that, off the back of that performance.
I was with Mauricio in New York City here just 2 days ago. I should have asked him.
Yeah, maybe you should have had a conversation. Did you discuss anything with him?
Oh yeah, we discussed a number of things. As you know, I'm doing the Muhammad Ali play, and one of the things we'd like to do, like choreographing and schedule and teaching the guys all about boxing and stuff like that. For this, it's going to be a world premiere on stage, and Broadway next year. But anyway, enough about me.
What I find it offensive about that is that there's, 50 great boxers who've had 20 plus fights and built careers, and they can rank a first-time boxer on another fighter's bad performance. Let's just say Tyson had a terrible performance. It happens. How can someone suddenly get ranked in the top 10 based on is Fury that important? The fact that he has a bad night, he still scrapes it out the bag, but he has a bad night, and based on his bad night, you can rank someone above 50 other fighters who've been boxing for 10 years, who've earned.
No, you're right. But he has a bad night against a non-boxer. That's crazy. That's like pulling somebody out of a bar.
Do you know what Spencer Fearon said today? You know Spencer Fearon, right, Gary? You heard of
yes.
This? And you're familiar with him too, Michael? Yeah.
I've never heard the name before.
You're kidding me? That will kill his ego.
I know who you're talking about.
That will kill his ego. Oh, you do know what I'm talking about. I was going to say, it'll kill his ego if you've never heard of him. He sure as hell heard of you. Anyway, you know what he said to me today? He said to me today, this may be a little bit of a stretch, but forgive the pun, Gary, or maybe not. He said the Larry Holmes that beat Butterbean would have beat Ngannou. I mean, I love that, whether it's true or not. Yeah. I love that.
Absolutely. In fact, I would have liked to seen a fight between him and Butterbean. That would have been fun.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Gary? It's Larry Holmes' birthday today, by the way.
My birthday tomorrow.
So again?
Hey, cheers.
Tomorrow. Cheers. Thank you.
That's kind of cool.
I think most. I mean, the one thing that behooves me is that we negate we negate the performance of Ngannou based on it's his first fight, but nobody really knows the capacity in which he boxed in regard to the amount of training and what because he said he's been training for Tyson Fury for 4 years. So whether or not that's true or false, it means he's been participating or keeping his finger in the game for 4 years. He's a huge guy. He's got a good chin. He's strong. He's very physical. He's a fighter all of his life. He's got a great brain, great mental strength, big heart.
He's athletic.
And that man get a Fury on a terrible night, and sure, and is the result going to be what it is? But I don't think that's going to push him into or propel him into becoming world champion anytime soon. Like Eddie Hearn says, and I'm not a fan, but I think that a AJ would walk through and knock him out. I think that Wilder would set him up and take him out. I just think it was a very bad night for Fury, and it happens. I think we've all had them, but again, it's still offensive that he can have that kind of result against a person on his professional debut. But I think that everyone's running off a little too fast with the high hopes of Ngannou in the boxing world based on one fight,
And you know what, Gary? Michael, we are contemplating that a 37-year-old guy with one fight and one loss in a boxing context could beat various world-class heavyweights of our current scene. Is that the most damning indictment of today's era of heavyweights imaginable?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like imagining getting a boxer going in the UFC. Let's say Tyson Fury goes in the UFC and he fights the world champion Francis Ngannou, and we just flip it, right? And the bell rings and they run out, and Ngannou goes to take him down. Tyson throws a right hand, knocks him spark out. Then all of a sudden they say Tyson Fury is the best UFC fighter in the world. It's so offensive to all the great UFC fighters who've worked for 20 years on 5 martial arts. But that's what we're doing right now, and everyone's running with it. The UFC guys are running with it because they've got this thing about they're better than fighters and whatever. But it's a night. It happened, but I'm not taking too much from it. Let's see his next fight, and then we can assess his future in boxing if there is one. And
there's the thing, Gary. If suppose he fights another big name next, people talk about Anthony Joshua, or I think I've seen other names thrown into the mix as well. Joseph Parker was another one I saw recently. If he loses again, which he should do, then he's 0-2. Where are they going with this boxing brand if they get him 2 losses? Do you know what I mean?
I don't get it. And I just think that, Tyson, to me, and I am a huge fan of Tyson for many reasons, but for me, I look at things. Do you remember the other day when the fight with the 2 lighter weight guys, Warrington and
Wood?
And I said, Warrington looked amazing, his skin, and he was winning the fight, and he was shocking everybody. He was winning the fight, and he got caught, right? In the same context of how I broke it down, I really fancied him the way he looked. When I saw Tyson Fury at the press conference, all of the upcoming leading things to this fight, he looked pale, he looked pasty, he didn't particularly look well to me. No. And I think, when you have a terrible night like that, I had a night like that once. Funnily enough, the fight when I fought Eubanks, I had some kind of virus. I was sick. When you get flu and you touch yourself, it hurts, You can make someone who's very, very average, very, very difficult when you're not physically, you have a bad night. And I honestly think it will come out maybe never, maybe sometime. But imagine if Tyson was under the weather. You're talking $50 million. He can't pull out the event, the opening of Riyadh, and the pressure he was under. He had to go through with it. And maybe Tyson Fury is a fucking hero, and he went through and he got through it.
You say he can't pull out, right, Gary? But what he can do is say, I'm fighting Alexander Usyk 23rd, and if he doesn't fight me on 23rd of December, I'll sue him. And then he says, actually, forget that. I can't do that now. Or Frank Warren says, I can't do that.
Yeah, but the fight would not been. I mean, if you get a bug or you get flu, 5 days before, and everything's sold, set up, then it's an issue. It's like I got a little bit sick I got a little bit under the weather with the Eubanks fight. I trained too hard, too short a period, and I think I was run down. And a few days before, I was really sick, and my father said, "You can't fight." I said, "Dad, I can't pull out." And it's like 2 days before. What can I do? I cannot. And I think that's a little different than having an issue 3 months away or 2 months away. You can pull out.
Yeah. Okay. Point taken.
Well, you can pull out. There's also, as you know,
if he did get sick, and he didn't look well to me.
Yeah, but you know what, Gary? You have a card because
the fact that he's great, he pulled through it.
Listen,
rather than he's so bad, I think he's so great that he managed to pull through it. Because anyone who's not 100% can't fight anyone.
But then, go on, Michael. What are you going to say?
Yeah, so I'm going to say, with Gary, I mean, listen, the only people that get those kinds of opportunities to pull out, Oscar De La Hoya, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roy Mayweather, Roy Jones, whenever they get a little problem, or I know Roy Jones has never done it, but Mayweather has, and Oscar De La Hoya has. If they hurt their ankle, if they're not feeling right, if they bump a knuckle, if they get a scrape in the thing, the fight's scratched. If you're looking to make it to the top still and you're not the world champ, and not only just being world champ, you need to be the world champ that's really pulling in numbers. At that point, you'll be able to stop the promotion of a fight and go on from there. But I think it's pretty common that every single fighter has gone into a fight not feeling 100%. I don't even know many fighters that have ever gone into a fight not just because of a cold or a head cold or anything, but maybe your knuckles are sore or your ankle's turned or your back is bad, or there's always something going into the fight because it's the nature of the sport itself. But
correct. But my argument is we all understand that. So a ranking and a position in boxing should be based on a period of a number of fights where you get some kind of an average of how good the guy is.
Absolutely, it should be. Absolutely,
should give him a ranking.
You're 100% right, Gary. But he fought and dropped a world champion having never boxed before. that's like, you know what I mean? Like, there are professional fighters that he's fought that have not dropped him, that are rated rated number one, rated number.
The only time we've seen that kind of comparative performance from someone who's got no fights, almost professional fights, they've been absolute amateur wizards like Vasyl Lomachenko, who had like 400 amateur fights. So in his second fight, he challenged for a world title and then won a world title in his third professional bout because he was so massively well versed in boxing from the amateur code.
And same with the kid Inoue.
Same with who?
Inoue. Yeah, Inoue as well.
In a way, yes.
Yeah. I think there's
I see what you did there. But
I just think that people, before they jump on the bandwagon and start saying how great people are, you've got to have some kind of scope of a career to
Sure. But okay, so let's talk about Fury Usyk. What they're saying now, gentlemen, is that the fight will take place in February. It would appear. Frank Warren said it's my job to save Tyson from himself. He wanted to go through with it, etc. But I told him he couldn't because, you know, the bit of wear and tear, the cuts on their forehead, etc. And so now it looks like they will fight in Riyadh.
And I think that's a perfect time. And it's not, Tyson's not avoiding. I think it's sensible. He's just had a tough fight. He looked tired after the fight. He needs a break. We have Christmas.
He doesn't need a break at all. He needs to get his ass in the gym.
I think he looked like it. I think it took a lot out of him, that fight. And whether or not whether he was sick or whether he wasn't, the fact that he dug deep and was pressured. And I think he needs a good couple of weeks off. If the fight was to be December 23rd, he would be pressured to get ready again. I think he needs to have a good couple of weeks off, maybe 3 weeks where he can really rest and slowly get back. And
this man has a body like he's had 5 years off. He does not need to take time off. He needs to get his butt in the gym and then lower his body fat percentage and up his muscle content and start thinking about reflex and timing and turning his punches over properly and locking his wrist when he throws a punch and quit slapping. And all these things. It's like there's a lot of things this man could do. He doesn't have to go in there. He doesn't have to go in there basically for conditioning, but he has to learn how to execute punches properly. It's always been an issue with him, and that's why when he fights somebody that's not.
Let me ask you a question, Michael. After the fight with Wilder, would you have said the same?
After what I said, I would have said the same thing about his execution, his timing, all the rest of that kind of. Absolutely, there's no fight that I've ever seen of his that I just went out there and I was like, damn, that was impressive. I just loved the way he would never, as a fighter growing up, and you as well, and you know, and Ben as well. When you see a fight and you're like, I remember seeing Aaron Pryor fight, Sugar Ray Leonard fight. All these guys fight, and I'd be like getting in the gym the next day, and I'd be throwing punches like them.
Trying to copy what they did.
Trying to copy what they do. All of that kind of stuff.
Again, they're not heavyweights.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali too, and Mike Tyson.
Muhammad Ali's a 1%.
How many people watch Mike Tyson? Larry Holmes jab, the overhand right by Ronaldo Snipes that dropped Larry Holmes, or Ernie Shavers' overhand right. You know, there's just so many instances. Evander Holyfield, the way he'd roll and come back with punches.
They're different fighters. Because I talked to Freddie Roach a few years ago, and he said to me, "Fury's really that." I said, "Is he that good?" He said, "Yeah, he's that good." He said, "He doesn't look good. He's not perfect. He's awkward. He's rangy, and that's why he said he came in the gym and went through every heavyweight in the gym." Just schooled them all. And he said he doesn't look as good as he is. He's better than he looks. So he has that. He's not the most polished guy in the world. He's not a Muhammad Ali. But Freddie says he beats them all because he's just got something about him that
he's unorthodox and he does have a strong will. But what I'm saying is
who he is.
And that's why Ngannou did so well against him, because he's unorthodox. You have two unorthodox guys in the ring, and who knows what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And sometimes an unorthodox guy can throw off a very accurate, determined, orthodox fighter. But
when you get a game of soccer, I completely agree. You get a game of soccer, right? You get 22 kids on a football field, and they're complete amateurs. Yeah. And the ball, when the ball goes wherever, there's 10 kids each on the ball, right? And so it's like a nightmare game, and anything can happen. Then you get a better side, and they time it, and they're passing the ball, and it becomes very organized. And when you're a good player, you can work with that. But when it's chaos, so when you when you play a team who is not experienced, it brings you down. Like you fight a fighter.
It can bring you down. Yes, it can.
Very difficult.
Yes, 100%.
Joe here has said that doesn't Fury look chinny compared to the greats? I believe Fury has been decked about 8 times in his career, which is quite a lot. Floyd Patterson was decked more, I believe. Ali, as far as I'm concerned, just looking for a comparative yardstick, Ali, for me, was only ever knocked down 3 times. I can't have that Chuck Wepner knockdown. I can't have the Chuck Wepner knockdown.
No, that's not a knockdown.
He got knocked down by Sonny Banks, Henry Cooper, and Joe Frazier, as far as I'm concerned, okay? Who else? Joe Lewis was on the deck a bunch of times.
He looks a little suspect at the minute. With the shot that hit him, again, it was on the top of side of his head at the top, but it was more of a glancing blow, and he barely got up at 8. And and also he's 35, and people have commented, is he slightly on the downslide now, which, it could be a bad night if Usyk gets him on that night that he's on the slide, He
wouldn't have beat Usyk on the last Saturday, would he? I don't believe. Or would it have just been a different fight?
I think it was a different fight.
About Usyk.
I think it would have been a different fight, and I think the one thing about Tyson Fury, which we have to give him, is that he always finds a way, no matter who it is.
Well, we hear that is a bit of a cliche, Gary, because the thing is, some people think he lost to John McDermott way back when. All right, it might not be relevant today, but it's relevant with any suggestion. He always finds a way.
Well, that's only one fight in a 10-year career.
But I've heard people say that Floyd Mayweather would have beat Tommy Hearns based on the idea they think Floyd would have found a way. So I'm always wary of that kind of those kind of thought patterns.
Well, let me ask you this: Ray Leonard beat Tommy Hearns.
He did, but he was nothing like Floyd Mayweather.
There's no Sugar Ray Leonard. Absolutely not Sugar Ray Leonard.
I prefer Leonard, to be honest, but I think Mayweather's very special.
Like Mayweather would have got brave and decided to break him up to the body and shoot.
He would never.
I don't think he had the zip like Leonard had, but I think
you need more than that. See, because you cannot outbox Tommy Hearns. That's the thing. So everyone says that he's going to outbox him, then go into his defense, this, that, and the other. Tommy Hearns, if you give him that kind of range and that kind of distance, he can do that for 15 rounds.
Who'd you put? Just a question. Who would you put? Prime Hearns, prime Canelo. You're with Hearns?
Well, that's a funny fight to make with a prime welterweight.
No, but Canelo's fought
like middleweight, yeah.
Like middleweight.
Oh yeah, I mean,
junior middleweight. Tommy.
Again, here's the thing. Canelo's very strong. He takes a great shot.
There's an example, and Mayweather schooled him, made him look like a boy.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. If Tommy Hearns went out there and wanted to box him, Canelo wouldn't touch him. Not even touch him. He would cut him up into ribbons, and it would be over.
But he wouldn't just be frustrated all night chasing shadows. There'd be another context. There'd be another aspect of the misery.
Yes, exactly, 100%. He's a different beast altogether. Like here's Floyd's plan of attack with everybody is he for the first 3-4 rounds he's going to just size you up and take toll of everything that's going on. So he watches, he sees, he gets your timing down, this, that, and the other. And then in the 4th, 5th round, then he starts touching you up and he's hitting you with the jab, but he hasn't let you touch him for the first 3 rounds. So you're frustrated. Guys are reaching and looking stupid and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Then you move into the rounds like from 4 rounds to like 8 rounds, and he starts taking it to you a little bit more. He gives you more opportunity to punch, and he's countering you because he's read. He knows what you're doing. And then for the last 4 rounds, for 8 to 12, he's read the book. He's digested you. He knows exactly what you do. He knows your habits, and that's great. That's an incredible way of doing it. It's a different way to hunt, though. It's a different way to hunt than how Hearns and Leonard and Hagler and all those other guys, Duran, how they did it. It's absolutely different. But again, he has a system and he sticks to that system, and that works with fighters that are not the caliber of Leonard, Hagler, even Benitez and Duran.
But matchmaking comes into play. Matchmaking and the people you choose to risk yourself against as you micromanage your own career. It comes into play.
It's like, what could he do to hit Duran? Like, what could he do? Going toe to toe with Duran. Look, he had a lot of problems with the kid that Castillo and the other kid.
You're not going to say Medina.
Well, I don't
think he had trouble with him. I think he beat him
pretty unfair because I'm like you guys. I love my favorite fighter. I think all time is Sugar Ray Leonard. That's me personally. In his prime, he had everything. And I love Duran. I love Hagler. I love Hearns. But are you saying that they are so much above Canelo, Pacquiao?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you saying that Canelo couldn't have competed with Hagler?
Well, Hagler's a different story because Hagler, I think, of the four of them, Hagler is kind of like an absolutely great fighter, strong. Once he kicks into gear, forget it, it's over. He'd run Canelo over.
Hagler was beatable.
But what Hagler did, like mentally, he kind of like for some reason he gave guys more than he should have. Like he went in there, he'd go in there and he'd over respect guys, like his first Vito Antuofermo fight, and then Fulio Bell, and there were other fighters. Benny Briscoe.
He didn't struggle with Fulio Bell.
He fought. I didn't say struggle, but he didn't fight up to. He fought him twice, right?
Yes.
Okay, and the first time, what happened?
Stopped him both times.
Okay, what round did he stop him the first time?
You know what? I can't remember. I think he took him out in 5 rounds the second time. I think it was a little longer the first time.
It was longer the first time, but he goes in like Marvin Hagler would go in there a little bit apprehensive to a lot of guys at first.
Yeah, and he was cautious by nature.
Sorry, yeah, he was cautious, and he had a great chin. He was in great shape, all that kind of stuff. But he still came in cautious and psychologically. But in the rematch, he'd blow guys out, and that tells you right there. Once he gets a sense of you, and he goes, "Okay, I know what this guy's got now, and I'm going to go in there and handle him." But it's not always the case. So with Canelo, initially, that might be an issue up for the first 4 rounds or so, because Canelo, listen, he's got skills. He slips punches, all of us, that kind of stuff. But once Hagler flips into that other gear and he gets psychologically, he tunes in, I don't think it's a match. No way. Hagler's too strong for Canelo.
Interesting you said that. You say he's too strong because you were saying the other day about you were minimizing the importance of conventional strength at all in the ring.
Conventional strength, but we're talking about boxing strength is different.
Okay. All right. Okay. You passed that test. Deflected.
Because with Ngannou, we're talking about he's bench pressing, he's lifting, he's like, that doesn't play a part in boxing. But it's just like when you're trying to move somebody at boxing.
Scary. Because we were having this argument today about strength, and myself and Nick Manners, an ex-pro from Leeds and a current trainer today, was saying that he thought strength was more important than you were willing to admit. And I'm kind of lean towards that, although I've got a lot of sympathy for your idea that it's usually overrated and the skills are the most important aspect. But Gary, was Chris Eubank, for instance, too strong for you? Was that essentially the problem? Because boxing-wise,
no, because he wasn't allowed to use his physical attribute against me. What beat me was I got in shape to a degree, but I wasn't in condition. I wasn't physically strong myself to be able to maintain a certain level for a long period of time. So I think physical strength, whether you can bench press 400 pounds or not, is not the issue. What is an issue is to have great conditioning so that you can maintain a level for a long period of time. And that is a physical conditioning. I think that is a different thing to strength. Physical strength. No, Eubank was a stronger man, a bigger man. But had I had more conditioning, it would have been a more interesting fight.
And I remember you saying that in an interview many years ago. It was retrospective already, but I think it was the 90s in Boxing Monthly. And you spoke about the fight and you said, I was fit, but I wasn't really conditioned.
I wasn't really physically well. And that's what I worried about Fury the other night. I'm sure he had a long camp. Different to me. I didn't have a long camp and I had a year off. But when you're not well, when you're not physically conditioned, it affects everything about you mentally, psychologically. When you just can't, when you don't have that, it's not about the strength. It's about your ability, because it affects the whole way you you take the fight. If your mind's not right, which again is one of the biggest important things, I would rather be 100% mentally right, and
maybe not a bit
physically, but when you're not well, it affects the mental. So it's like you could say against my argument, okay, Gary, you was 100% ready for Eubanks mentally, but you wasn't physically strong. No, I was, but the physical weakness that I had before the fight, which I knew affected the mental, which didn't allow me to be 100% mental. But if I was in good condition, my mind's right, I may not have had the best camp, but I'm physically strong enough to know I can do what I need to do, then the mind is very important. But when you're physically not right, and if Tyson's not 100%, or keep going back to that fight, but if it affects everything.
Trying to get off it.
Yeah, but it affects everything. So I think the best thing we do with Francis Ngannou is move on, and we judge his next one, and we'll get a better gauge. If he wipes out a Joseph Park, if he wipes out a Dylan White, if he wipes out a Anthony Joshua, then sure, rank him.
By the way, Gary, you mentioned Dylan White's name, yeah? Interestingly enough, he's just gone completely off the radar since he failed the drug test and the Anthony Joshua rematch was cancelled, has he not? There's literally been no smoke around that situation or anything. It's like he's vanished off the face of the media earth, like Dylan White. When you think of the scrutiny with Conor Benn's case and the Clomiphene gate,
no one's even discussed Dylan White.
No one's even discussed Dylan White, and it's weird because remember when he failed the test back in 2018, Gary, and he had problems after the Oscar Rivas fight, and he had this period of being sidelined while that whole process played itself out, and in the end he was exonerated. There was plenty of coverage over there. This time, Dylan has just been put to one side. He hasn't said anything, and no one seems to talk about him.
Dylan White is another Eddie Hearn fighter, right?
Well, not really. He works with him, but not really.
Him, right? And one would ask, does Eddie know how to handle this second time around? Vanish.
Well, he's handled it before with Dylan. And he stuck by him last time. Obviously, massively so with Conor Benn. He went through that whole process as very high profile. But the Dylan thing this time, it just seems perhaps there's not enough percentage in Dylan as far as everybody's concerned.
Well, there's not enough. Yeah, because with Conor, he's bringing him into the superstar realm. With Dylan, he's kind of just putting him to work before he retires now. And so he's not as relevant, meaning if Dylan retires now, he's had an incredible career.
Not incredible career. Come on, let's be careful with
that. He's had a great career. If you was a heavyweight boxer, he's made a lot of money. He's been in some huge fights. He's had a great career. He's had a decent career. His career is not going to be changed moving forward. So it is what it is. He may get another payday against if he fights another world top class fighter, he will lose again. Every time he's got to the level where he's got to take the next step, he's been beat. So he may be in an interesting fight again.
Maybe in Ghana.
But he's had his career. Conor Benn was this young kid on the rise and still is, and there was so much hype then and also based on the people involved around it, with it being a Eubanks and with it being the families and all of the stuff that got involved, and Eubanks Senior going crazy about you trying to murder my son. I think the whole thing got blown up enormously big, whereas the Dillian White just kind of, okay. It's another big baby situation. That was almost bigger than the Dillian White.
Baby Miller.
But yeah,
funny enough, Gary and Michael, I went to the press conference for Joshua versus Miller for the fight that never was. And at the time, Miller had this publicist, a lovely woman called Alvina Alston. Huh?
Her name was Ellen K. Bromson, did you say?
No, I didn't say that at all. Did you honestly think I said that, or you just being difficult?
You said that.
Listen, let me explain how your psychology works, or your brain.
No. Funny enough, she just wrote a question in.
She did, which is why that you thought that. I was going to say.
No, but you said Ellen. You said it.
No, I said Alvina Alston.
Was like
Alvina Alston.
You see how close that is?
You've got Ellen K. Bromson on your
You have
mind.
like homonyms. You're saying homonyms. So
Listen, you've got Ellen K. Bromson in your head because I just put her on the screen. Just there. Look at that. Ellen K. Bromson.
Back. There you go.
That glimpses like a rodent on the floor of your mind. Yeah. Okay. As it goes past. And then I start talking about another woman.
Like that's what you said.
Yeah.
If
okay.
you didn't have your accent, if you didn't have your accent, maybe I wouldn't have thought that, but you have an accent.
You already had it in your head. It's regardless. Her name was Alvina Alston. Yes.
Oh, Alvina Alston. I see. Okay.
Really nice woman. Black woman from New York, larger than life, just a fabulous character. And she took a bit of a shine to me, so she said I could get a private interview with Baby Miller in his hotel suite at the Scion Lane Hilton. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what was odd about the situation was I saw so much junk food in that room. There was just like more burgers and fries than you've ever seen in your life.
Wow.
Which I thought was really bizarre. Honestly. And then the next thing you know, the fight's off. He's failed the drug test. Can't remember what he tested positive for now. I think it was something that was just lots of letters, wasn't it?
Probably sugar.
What's that? Say again?
Probably a lot of sugar. He tested
probably a lot of sugar, yeah. Well, sugar can be a bad thing, as you know. But
Gary and I do know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you came with me on that one. But regardless, like we say, the Dylan White story has gone off the radar, and I would be vaguely interested to know where they're at with that. Whether there's going to be some kind of resolution, or will Dylan White just fade away and retire? I guess we will see.
Who was he due to fight? He was fighting who?
Well, he'll take another fight. There's money to be made.
When he tested positive, who was he due to fight?
Who Dylan?
Yeah.
He wasn't due to fight anyone, Gary. He'd just beaten Oscar Rivas, and then there came out the scandal that he'd failed a test, and they knew about it before the fight, and they didn't tell Rivas' side, and they just went ahead with it anyway. That was the issue. So then, I believe, while that whole process played out with UKAD, he was free to fight technically. He certainly could have fought somewhere, but he didn't want to fight until he cleared his name. And that was the course of action they took with Dylan. And then it was Diana Ball, he tested positive for, Gary, which is a real, apparently classic old 1970s weightlifting type bodybuilding ped.
Yeah.
And in the end, they said the traces were so small that they didn't think there was any deliberate ingestion and desire. And
where else can you ingest that stuff from?
I don't know. People talk about contaminated things at the time. Apparently, somebody called nickname YTR said Baby Miller always goes on about cheeseburgers. So he does. He definitely. There was a lot. I heard that it was for like a few other people too, but there was just the whole camp obviously was in love with cheeseburgers from what I saw.
You know what though? But Big Baby Miller, I do like his style. I do like his fightability. I do like his athleticism. I like that about him. I don't know anything about the all the drugs and all that kind of stuff. He got caught. He did his time. He's back now, and hopefully, he just stays clean. But I saw him. The kid's talented. He puts up numbers. That's nice. And I know, as you know, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to take leave now. I have I have to be downtown for Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. What's going on tonight, by the way?
Oh, so yes, it's we're finally the whole crew of us, we're getting together and putting together Ali. It's going to be in theater. It's going to be in England as well. We're going to run it there in London.
You're going to come here then?
Ali is coming to Broadway, and that means I'm going to be coming to England.
That's brilliant. So
what is your participation in it? What are you doing?
I'm the choreographer. I'm the boxing choreographer, and just more or less just keeping everybody along the line of the reality of boxing and what Ali is and what the stage would look like, and just being an overall kind
making sure it's authentic, that representation.
Exactly. And I'm also doing a lot in terms of bringing people in on the project. I'll have the WBC in there, and I brought Q-Tip in, and you know what I mean? So there's a whole lot of things going on. It's going to be kind of fun. In fact, I just got that thing right there that you hate.
But it's unprofessional. It's unprofessional. It wouldn't happen on TalkSport, would it?
That's Jill Diamond of the WBC. She's
a friend of mine.
Yeah, she's great, right?
I stayed with Jill when I went to New York. She's a great apartment there. She's a really beautiful woman.
Yeah, she's a beautiful woman. I love her a lot.
I
never got the invite to the apartment, though. I guess that's only something.
Only the special guest.
Suave.
White privilege.
Gary Suave.
There's a beautiful, old brick apartment. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, she's.
I'll have to drop a hint. I'll be like, yeah, I know somebody that's seen your brick apartment.
Tell her, yeah, she's got a great apartment. I keep in touch with Jill.
She's great.
I lost my WBC belt. It was stolen. No, Frank Warren actually gave it to Tony Collins.
No.
We're talking about Continental, by the way.
Yeah, the WBC international title. And
international, sorry.
And then I gave it up. I never lost it and let Tony Collins fight for it. And then they took my belt and never given it me back because I was in a dispute after with Warren. And so they give me another belt. And Jill was the one who went and got it for me. But yeah.
Yeah, she's beautiful. She's a beautiful person. And Ben, if you could do me a favor, there were some questions earlier from some people, and they looked really like good questions. You guys may want to hit them back.
Yeah, we will do. I mean, I've been flashing up your comments on the screen, guys, and so you know that we are paying attention to them, and I'm putting up the interesting ones. But yeah, we've decided we will have a questions and answer questions in the last 10 minutes, which we're getting pretty close to. Silk, have a good one down there, and we will see you Sunday, I hope.
Okay, yes, I got to pop my collar. Y'all tell me, how's this look? So,
go on, let's have a look. Put yourself in the screen. There you go. Put yourself in the screen.
Oh, okay. Here, right here. Does that work?
Yeah. Can you see what we can see when we're on this show usually? Because it's like, there you go.
Oh, no, it's
that's looking good. It's looking good. You look like you should belong in some kind of 1980s kind of Escape from New York type zombie thriller.
Shafter. Oh yeah, I like that. Maybe like that. What was that song? Blade.
Yeah, exactly. Looking good. It's happening.
That's all I needed. My ego is filled.
It'll
allow me.
I can do compliments. I just don't. I just won't do homoerotic blatant subservience for future guidelines. Are we cool? See you later.
That's when we're going to be cool.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Maybe we know each other better.
All right, guys. Take care. Thanks a lot. See you.
So then there were two, Gary. Do you know, I wanted to talk a bit about Larry Holmes simply because it's his 74th birthday today. And it's a shame Michael can't partake in that because he'd have something really interesting to say about Larry Holmes. Like
underrated, brilliant champion.
He's not Gary, he's not underrated.
He is as far as the public. The boxing people know, but the general public.
When you live in a world of boxing 24/7, you've heard it 38 million times, and you just get sick of hearing it. And it's like when everybody says about the Lonsdale belt, most beautiful belt in the world. Yeah. It is. But fucking hell, let's talk about something else. Or Larry Holmes.
What I talk about with Larry Holmes is if you talk to the general public, they don't even know Larry Holmes, and the boxing world is a legend. Best jab in the world, one of the best right hand. I mean, he was just a great fighter, but the only big fame he got was when Tyson fought him, and he wanted to beat him
when he
because he beat up Muhammad Ali. But Holmes was champion for so long with so little. That's all I say.
Thing is, he was making millions though, Gary. Let's be fair, and he was.
Yes, but he never really got the public. I don't know why. But again, it's about personality.
Don't forget the Cooney fight was huge too. The Cooney fight was massive.
Yeah, but I think again, it's this thing about personalities coming to the game, and he was just a pure fighter. He didn't have a game for personality. He was just a purist, and so we never caught on. He made the money. He had a great career, but this is why it's with these YouTubers and with these social media. It's the people who are catching are these crazy personalities, which is sad because the pure fighters are not making the money they should. Like some of the great fighters have made nothing, and some of these very average personality people are making.
Look at someone like Mike McCallum, never made mega bucks.
Incredible.
I mean, he must have made a few quid.
Imagine the amount of work and the dedication and the years, and to get maybe a 50th of what these other fighters with a bit of a social media. I mean, it's changed. Everything's changed. It's now in film. I'm in the film business. People may not take me seriously as an actor because I was a boxer, but I've taken it serious for years now, and I've made it my job to become a good actor. And I've studied with the greats. I've worked with Sean Penn. I've worked with Oliver Stone. Chino. I've worked with all of the people. And so, but I'm not going to get a movie now above some young, not even young, someone my age who's got a massive social media following. Sorry? They're based on numbers, like how many followers, how many Instagram.
Seriously,
they're not interested how good you are as an actor anymore, which is shocking because where did the art form go? Like, you should hire someone who's amazing in a movie, but no, they just, what's the numbers? They don't even want to audition. They see how many followers you've got and they get the roles. So, like, it's gone mad. Social media is destroying professions, it's destroying careers,
art forms.
It's destroying real careers, and it's destroying lives too. I mean, there's social media.
I think there is a good aspect to it. I mean, I would never. Two of my dad's favourite fighters, aside from the great ones, were Michael Olajide and Gary Stretch. Honestly, two of his favourite guys who weren't in that immortal realm, which obviously had his Alis and his Leonards and his Larry Holmeses. But two of his favourite fighters from the other kind of mere mortal ranks was you and Michael. And he died in 1997, unfortunately, but he'd be blown away to think that I was in regular contact with you guys today and broadcasting and discussing it, giving a mention and discussing our views on all matters boxing. That is purely attributable to social media. We can do that. That is amazing, I think.
It's pretty amazing. I'm very honored that you said that. Thank you. It's just sad. Like, I'm a bit of an old school person. I've done 50 movies. I've never had a publicist. I really just want to go to work and go home. That's my job. I don't want the attention.
No.
But what I don't like is the fact that that social media is coming into an art form where the art form, sooner or later, what are we going to be watching? Well,
you know what? I trained a female heavyweight a few months ago. She's going to turn pro. She's done all right in the amateurs, and she's looking to turn pro. And someone said, "Could I do a session with her?" She's from like Cornwall or somewhere, Devon, whatever. So anyway, she comes up, and she when I say heavyweight, the female heavyweights are smaller, aren't they? She's probably like a light heavyweight or a cruiserweight in our language. And I was saying to her about turning pro, and she was talking about the journey and what was necessary, the boxes would have to tick. And I said, well, social media following never hurt anybody. I said, stating the obvious. And she said, yeah, I got a good social media following. And I looked at her, and she's got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of fucking followers on Instagram. And you'll never guess. There's a load of bikini shots and a load of arse shots. And fair enough, she looks well in a bikini because she's kind of chunky, but she's fit and she's sort of sexy, and she looks well in a thong or a bikini or whatever else. But so there's about 3 million of those kind of salacious kind of photographs, and all these guys going like fire, looking hot, babe. And that is, she could probably leapfrog a few situations off the back of that following. You know what I mean?
I tell you what the one good thing about social media, and this is something you have to give Jake Paul incredible plaudits for. If you look at Amanda Serrano, right, she would have never earned $1 without Jake Paul. But he's took her under his wing. He puts her on all these huge events. She had this incredible career, incredible record, but she was never making any money until she met Jake Paul. And now he used his social media now to promote a great fighter who was never making money and is now made her very wealthy. So this is where social media can come into play. And this is where the crossover needs to change. This is where the Jake Pauls are great for the business. If you get a social media kid with a huge following who can use that now to promote real fighters, then we have an incredible future. But not so much to promote themselves in stupid fights against other social media guys, which is a freak show. But Jake Paul's the first one who's now took a real fighter who was credible and incredible credentials, but hadn't earned money, and has now made her make a lot of money based on.
I mean, that's the argument in favour of Jake Paul, because I believe as well, when he boxed on a certain show, whichever bout it was, he shared a bunch of his money with the undercard fighters as well, because he just to try and redistribute that kind of wealth a little bit, which was, when you hear things like that, you can't, you have to.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the whole thing, but when you hear what he does, then that's good for boxing. And
I don't agree with what this fella's just said. He says social media has made fight sports mainstream. It's less mainstream today than it used to be. When all the fighters were on terrestrial TV in Britain and in the States, Ray Mancini could fight in front of a 20 million audience back in the day, or more so even. Bam McGuigan fought in front of 20 million people when he beat Eusebio Pedrosa on BBC One. Eubank and Ben, 18 million viewers on ITV. So, but it's less. Boxing was more mainstream back in the day when there was terrestrial television, not with social media.
Well, that's not particularly true, because it was extremely popular back in the day because they were legendary fights. Now we're getting irrelevant fights making the same numbers. That's why it's relevant, social media. So
yeah,
you put these two idiots on back in the day, they wouldn't get 10 views. But social media, what it's done is it's making ridiculous fights that would never get coverage as if it's a world title fight with Leonard Hearns. That's what they're getting now, the numbers with a YouTuber. So it is relevant, but it's not relevant to the pure boxing. We're always going to be. This is why UFC, they're still behind us. People say it's a bigger sport. No. When the big UFC fights take place, they get a 20th of what the big boxing.
Yeah.
Canelo's made more money than all the UFC guys put together.
That's the thing.
So boxing still has its place and it still has its followers. But that's when you're great. But the one issue with the boxing is we have the very wealthy, great legendary fighters, and one foot below the good fighters, there's a huge gap. So it's like the 1%ers make the money and the rest of us don't make any money. And so that's where, it would be nice to spread it out a little bit. But
boxing is so capitalist, isn't it? It almost reflects a capitalist society absolutely perfectly in the way that the pyramid breaks down, But I think that's the issue as well. With the proliferation of world titles, I see the argument that it allows more fighters to make money and people attached to those fighters. But what tends to happen is in the same way as if you flooded the world with diamonds, then diamonds obviously lose a lot of their value and rarity value. It's the same. There's world title fights going on this week. Like there's a South African kid defending on the undercard of Joe Cordina versus Edward Vasquez tomorrow night. I can't pronounce his name, but Tonshinga, I think, is the surname. Sivanathi or something. It's hard to pronounce. But he's I see there was a Trish Dixon interviewed him on his podcast, and someone else, one of the American kind of scribes, was tweeting that he looks like a really good fighter. I've never heard of him. I imagine you've never heard of him. I know Silk would never heard of him. And these days, the world title fights are so prolific that they go on almost unnoticed, but by a lot of people who are even pretty hardcore into boxing, like ourselves.
The issue is, what is a world title anymore? It's like this is 5 belts now.
I say there's 4 because I really can't go with the IBO, but
IBF, WBO, WBA, WBC, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's like every 3 years, I think there should be either a competition where all the 4 champions meet. And
they did that, didn't they? A little while. It was Super 6. That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, that should be, I think, mandatory every 3 years. They should do like the belt. We should get it undisputed every 3 years. And keep it some form, because there's really. It used to. WBC is my favorite belt, I guess. It's the old, like the classic green belt, but there's no world champions, very few at the moment, because there's just 4 or 5 belts, and so who's the best? And half the time we never know. So,
and the thing is, just in closing, O'Hara Davies, who's a fighter that I know because he's from East London, and I remember him as an amateur at the TKO gym in Canning Town, and I know him because I've seen him on the boxing scene for several years, including when he started as when he won the novice championships or whatever he won. And now he's finally landed what he will regard as a world title shot, and his team will regard as a world title shot. He's fighting Ismael Barroso December the 2nd in Texas for the interim WBA light welterweight title. I think it's a WBA. But the thing is, I mean, an interim title, as far as I'm concerned, is a nonsense. You know, it continues to be a nonsense. Things get increasingly normalised by sheer repetition, but I still think it's a nonsense for obvious reasons, even more than the nonsense of having splintered championships in the first place. But and you know, if he wins, that there'll be all this kind of emotional, outpourings and tears, and that the kid from Hackney made good. He's finally done it. And the thing is, you're not a world champion, huh?
What belt?
I say it's a WBA interim, like welterweight title. You know how that goes. You know, they declare someone else a champion in recess or a champion, you know, emeritus or whatever, and there you go. But you know, listen, people have been upgraded to champion. I remember, Carl Greaves is a great boxing man, you know, and he's a good guy, and he was a good ex-fighter himself, and he promotes up in Nottingham and all the rest of it. But or where is it? Newark. He lives in Newark, which is near Nottingham. And I remember him saying that David Evanesian. Remember David Evanesian, who lost to Terence Crawford, but he was pretty much unbeatable on the continent, a Russian kid. He said one time, great to wake up and find I actually manage a world champion this morning, because he'd been upgraded by but I think it was, I can't remember which body, and I don't fucking care. Probably the WBA, to be honest.
Without fighting, yeah.
Yeah. And they will take these accolades and really get quite moist-eyed about them. And I just think it's bizarre.
Me too.
Yeah.
On that note, Ben.
Yeah. All right, Gary. Well, we'll do a show Sunday. Once again, there will be action to talk about, but there's not necessarily definitive action. We can just roll like we did today. We just chew the fat and see where we go. Because one thing you know is we're never going to run out of boxing conversation. Thanks for all your questions
that we didn't answer, Ben.
We can have a quick look to see actual questions rather than just comments. It's just a quick one from Joe. He says Joe Bugner was saying that he was the oldest heavyweight champion ever because he won the WBF against Bonecrusher Smith. You know, it's contemptible, isn't it? It is absolutely contemptible. Things happen in boxing in this generation that not even the mob in the 50s would try to get away with. Yeah, you see what I mean? That's funny he says that, Gary, because when Frankie Carbo and his men had a stranglehold on the 8 or many of the 8 world championships in existence in boxing then, it was awful and it was underhanded and it was crooked, but there was this funny integrity at the heart of it where they still only have one world champion for the most part in every weight division.
Let me ask you a question. I've had people over the years ask me, is boxing fixed, rigged? I've never known of anyone taking a dive. I said the biggest rigging is getting the fight. I mean, getting in a position where you can get a title fight, or to get in the, where's the politics come in to get someone ranked to get to justify a title fight, but have you ever been privy to a rigged fight where a real fighter's thrown a fight?
I'll tell you what I've been privy to, and like you say, taking a dive. No, I don't. I'm not aware of anyone's taken a dive. I remember in the amateurs, one of my clubmates told me he took a dive because he didn't fancy fighting. He was nervous. He had smoke in the back of his throat. He basically just bottled it and capitulated. And he said he went down.
Paid to take a dive, right?
No, he wasn't. No, and that's the only time I remember someone telling me we went down deliberately. But here's what has happened. I was working with a heavyweight journeyman at one point. He used to be a kind of someone who was touted as a prospect who was going places. He was managed by Frank Maloney first of all. Then he lost a few fights and he went on the road and just took the money. He was waiting. He wanted a fight because he needed some money, and the promoter, who I won't name, said, "Right, I've got this debutant who's having his first fight, obviously at the York Hall. This was maybe 2015, maybe. But so anyway, he said, but you must promise me you will go easy." He said he's really not very good. He said, I'm really worried about him, and he's only a cruiserweight. My guy was fucking huge. Some people will know what I'm talking about. Fuck it, but I'll be a little bit opaque. So the promoter said, "Please promise me you won't upset the apple cart," because apparently the family of this debutant was supposed to be a bit heavy as well. He was well supported, and the promoter was actually worried about reprisals because somebody said to him, "Why the fuck have you switched opponents? And why is he fighting this fucking Goliath suddenly?" Who they obviously knew by reputation when he was a prospect. And they said, "If this goes wrong, there'll be fucking murders over this," and blah, blah, and blah. Okay, so then he said to me as the coach, "Ben, I'm really worried about this." He says, "He's so bad. Such and such could stop him with a body shot by accident." He said, "You must promise me he will play nice." They used to call it with the cuffs on back in the mob era. So basically, I've been told your guy cannot. Please don't let your. I know your guy's coming to lose, but please don't let him win by accident. I've had that, yes.
Okay.
But that's.
I've not been privy to. But on that note, Ben, I would love you and leave you if you'd like to.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Cheers, Gary. It's kind of cool doing it just with two of us sometimes the same way it is. You and Silk will have to do a show without me one time. We'll all be back, I imagine, on Sunday. Thank you for tuning in. In the meantime, be lucky. Don't do anything that we wouldn't do. Cheers all. Thank you, Ace Podcast Nation, for making it possible.